Hi guys, and welcome to my latest review. This time I'll bring you the BGVP P05. This is BGVP's take on a single dynamic in, let's call it, the mid-budget price range. And by mid-budget price range, what do I mean? This is priced at $45, so it's under the $50 price bracket, and you know, a very competitive price bracket, if that. The calling card, or the thing which is the point of attraction for the BGVP, is the tuning system that they've used. They've basically taken advantage of not only the air which is moved by the front of the driver and out of the nozzle, but also the air that's leaked from the rear of the driver, and they've created this complex loop system that allows the tuning and adjustment of that air which is escaping, basically, and thus improving bass output and making the sound overall more balanced. So it's a very smart design. Actually, I can just quickly show you here a diagram. Yeah, here we go. So they've basically taken advantage of those air leakages from the front and from the back, and then used a filter on the back, and obviously we have the filter in the front, which are interchangeable. You can swap out for different ones, and that has allowed for a more fine tune and a more fine adjustment of the bass that the P05 can generate. Anyway, this is the box, very much BGVP style. Remove the sleeve and we open it up, and we are presented again with the usual BGVP style. Some paperwork. Over here came the carrying case, which is this one over here. Alright, it's got enough space. Alright, it brings also this little box with these filters that you can see there. The silver ones are for the front. Stock, it brings gold, which are the ones that I have on, and the red ones are for the back of the actual earphone. I've actually got the silver ones there now, but anyway, I'll show that to you in a second. As I was saying, the earphones themselves came over there. Nice selection of tips. I'm actually using the stock tips because they are decent. The only point here of well, look, it's ultimately, it's not really a bad cable, okay, but you know, with such a nice presentation for the price, a nice accessories, a nice case, you know, if they went to all the trouble of making all of that, they could have just improved the cable a little bit. I mean, it's not difficult. We've seen other IEMs at this price point that have nicer cables, so it's not really a unfunded criticism. Actually, it's a constructive criticism. Because ultimately, you know, at this price range, as I mentioned, you know, the $50 price bracket, it's becoming increasingly competitive. So every little detail counts. And obviously, you know, cable quality does count. Although I know that the majority, or many of us, will ultimately end up changing the cable. At least I do many times. Okay. Anyway, here's the IM. Okay, so as you can see, it then brings these filters. Okay. Which you can change. The front one, I've got the gold, as you see, and the back I've got the silver one. Alright, and what they basically do is the gold, okay, confers the above 1K response a more Harman kind of style, so a nice progressive peanut gain, peaking at just over 3Ks or close to 3Ks, and then, you know, slowly dropping off, and that's it. So everything is very smooth. If on the other hand I use the silver one, what that does is the peanut gain is slower. It's got a slight plateau around 2 to 2.5K, and then it rises again to the more or less the same peak and then drops. So there's a little bit more, you could say it's a little bit more tamer. Not that the other one is in any way harsh or aggressive or anything. And then with regards to the back filter, this one, excuse me, this one, the silver one, gives the P05 a more extended sub bass, while the red one, which I showed earlier, my apologies, the red one gives a slight roll off for the sub bass. Noticeable if you listen to music which has a lot of information down there, which not a lot of it does anyway, but otherwise, you know, it wasn't really you will pick up on the differences. I'm not saying that you won't pick up on the differences. Of course you will, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. But the changes are very subtle, okay, and it will be very much, I think, more of a question of this being less bassy or more bassy than necessarily the upper, the mids, the upper mids and treble suffering radically from the change of the nozzles. The fit, being this bullet style, is always something that's going to be, I wouldn't say problematic, but it's going to be something that you either accept or don't accept. There's nothing like a good old fashioned, proper shell that, fits your whole ear format much better and stays in place much better. So here, very much the tip will be the determining factor if everything stays in place. Let's put it that way. And it's okay. I mean, we already know bullet style IEMs will always have this little slight issue with fit, and the P05 is no different. Anyway, the cable I'm using is not the stock cable, as you already have seen. This is an XINHS cable, and it just works fine. It's a MMMCX connector. It works fine, so that's basically it. Anyway, what do I have here for us to compare the P05 with, and then try and sit it in its, find its place in the market. As I said, the price is $45. I could have selected more IEMs, fair enough, but I didn't want to overcomplicate things, so I kept it down to the following. 10 HiFi T2 DLC, and not many people know this because I haven't really made my tier list actually as well, but this is one of my favorite IEMs. It's an IEM that I've always liked from day one. It was slightly more expensive. It's now come down in price a little bit, and now we can buy it for around the $58 mark, slightly still above the P05, fair enough, but it's become more competitive in its price. It used to be closer to $70, at now $58. I think it's a way more interesting proposition. Okay, and as I said, this is one of my favorite unknown IEMs, not by many. The other one that I have here is the EPZ Q5, one of my let's say go-to Rex as of late. I think it's an absolute fantastic IEM, honestly. The fact that they have imitated Meze in terms of its shell design doesn't really bug me, doesn't really bother me. I think it's more important is if they had imitated and the sound was crap, then that would be one thing. But no, they actually have tuned it properly. It is using a good quality driver. And it does play well, period. So much so that it is one of my go-tos at this $50 price bracket, and its price is exactly that. It's $48 if I'm not mistaken. Obviously the P05, the BGVP. Then I've got here another one which as well has come down in price, and has been an IEM that for some reason as well, I don't know, I guess people fell in love with the EA500 from SimGot and they kind of forgot this. As truth be told as well, the price was higher and now it's become lower. You can now have the Wizard Kailin HE10 for $59 roughly. So it's dropped a good $20 in its price. It uses a carbon nanotube driver. This is a DLC. This is a bespoke diaphragm. I'm not really sure what it is. And this is that PU and ceramic. And the HE10. Some people criticize it for being way too bass heavy, and but I actually don't think. I actually think it's a really nice, nicely tuned IEM. Considering it is following the Harman curve, let's put it that way. But it's nicely tuned. It's got a solid bass. The mids, everything is it's solid. They've done their work. It's not by any means been just half-assed and throwing together parts. No, definitely not. And then finally on the right hand side there, I've got the SIMGOT EW200, which at $40, basically $39.99 actually, is you know, with the EPZ, the other rec that I usually tell people to go for, and the reason is simple. It's basically a baby EA500 in my opinion. Yes, you could ultimately say it's got a little bit more sub bass as compared to the EA500. I don't necessarily agree wholeheartedly with that, but I will give it that. I'll give it that. And then very detailed in the mids, upper mids, and treble. It also uses a special in-house diaphragm, a mix of DLC and LCP. They've mixed the two together, and nice construction. It fits nicely because it's got a more conventional shape, just like the Kylene and the EPZ. Only the 10 HiFi and the BGVP use this more bullet style fit, and again a very solid $50 IM. There are a few others, but the main reason why I actually chose these four to compare is because the graph of these four compared to the BGVP is almost identical. I mean, it is actually quite surprisingly how similar they are. Having said that, there are two distinct groups here. There is a group of the SIMGOT, the EPZ, and the T2 DLC, which are IMs which are very easy to drive and they get loud very quickly. And then there's the group of the P05 and the Wizard, which you can turn up. You have to turn up the volume a bit more to reach the levels that the other ones can generate pretty easily and pretty quickly. And that basically then creates two groups that, although all of them follow this Harman style of tuning, will give us a different overall tonality and approach to that Harman execution. Okay, two of them, these two, have a more kind of overall warmish, but let's call it, although I didn't want to use this word, but let's call it warmer and less clinical, less fatiguing Harman presentation, while the other three have a more open, more clinical, but also possibly more fatiguing Harman signature. So let's start breaking things down a little bit more here, so I can help you guys understand what the P05 is about. Right off the bat, the moment you put the P05 in your ear, once you found the right tip and you've got the right position that it fits in nicely and so on and so forth, you will be impressed, at least I was impressed, by the very inviting tonality that it has. Fair enough, I have to turn up the volume a little bit more to get it to the levels that, like I mentioned earlier, the EPZ and the SIMGOT especially can generate very quickly. But assuming that we have all been able to get an equal volume out of all, and you listen to it and it's very satisfying straight away. That tonality, it's very inviting. It draws you in. Several songs, the ones that I usually use, but for example, one of the songs that I used quite extensively this time is a song called Valdez of Crenshaw, by Terrence Martin. And you listen to the song at around the 2-minute 30 to about 3-minute 30. There's a lot of sax there, and it can get a little bit intense, because it's quite energetic the way that sax goes out, and the way that the P05 and the HE10 Duet is very, it gives you the energy, okay, it gives you the intensity, but without it being on the edge of you saying, hold on, I've got to turn down the volume because this might hurt. Okay, so you kind of can leave the volume on one place and, you know, listen to the whole song and listen to this particular solo quite nicely without having to, let me turn down the volume slightly. All right. And I particularly you know, favor that kind of presentation, let's put it that way. You know, there are IEMs that, okay, fine, I don't mind having to turn down the volume a little bit or having to turn it up a little bit more, but if I don't have to touch the volume and I can listen to a song throughout its whole entire you know, playback without having to touch the volume because it does everything nicely, it's a plus point for me. On that particular song, for example, the SIMGOT of the other three is the one that really can, there is parts there, especially towards the end of the minute 3, so closer to minute 4 actually, it can hurt you a little bit. It can hurt you a little bit, and unquestionably, you know, lowering the volume is a necessity. The EPZ and the DLC, they do it not with the same subtleness as these two, but they also don't approximate the same level of harshness. Harshness is a bit of a strong word, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. But this is this particular song. There are other songs where, you know, there's no issue, like Portals from Laura Misch. It's a song that, for example, be it the DLC, be it the EPZ, or be it the SIMGOT, they actually shine with this song. And you can pick up on all the, I mean, you know, the issues, not the issues, but all the stuff of the panning that goes on in this particular song, and the details, and I mean, any one of these three does it amazingly well. These two also do that song well, but, you know, once you've listened to it in these three, you kind of say, okay, that's a nice reproduction, that's a nice playback of this song from Laura Misch, but those three, they do it in a more satisfying manner. They give it more realism. All right. If I now use more, let's say, No Ordinary Love from Sade, they all equal, really. There isn't really much in between any of them to say, oh, this one is better. No, nothing. Another one, let's see, Hello Again from Paul Brown. Same thing, the guitar, it comes across beautifully in any one of these IEMs. Maybe on the HE and on the BGVP, the tonality that these two have will be a little bit more satisfying. Okay, you know, and touching on the issue of tonality, or the point of tonality, they all have a very correct timbre and tonality. There are two here which perhaps take that timbre and tonality a little bit to the extreme of it being a little bit intense at times, which is the SIMGOT and the Q5. I will give it that. It didn't offend me, but I will give it that. The DLC in that aspect is also very detailed, but it does that timbre and that tonality in a more realistic manner. While for me, the BGVP and the HE are the two that have the nicest, or well, at least in my music genres that I like listening, that give those songs that I listen to the most pleasant timbre and tonality. Another one, Don't Believe in Love from Dido. Again, another song that you know, there isn't really much in between any of them. They do it very well. La Belle Dans Sans Remorse from Chris Botti, another one that they all do it very nicely, although that 1 minute 20 to 1 minute 40 where the sax, the trumpet is used a little bit more intensely, I would probably say that these these two and the DLC are the ones that actually do it in a nicer manner. Not that the EPZ or that the SIMGOT don't do it well, they do it, but you'll have to be careful a little bit with the volume. Okay, that's it. Talking about soundstage and imaging, really there isn't much I can say. They all but you know, do soundstage and imaging pretty well. Probably the ones that have the largest soundstage, although maybe just a smidge on the pushed side, is the SIMGOT and the EPZ. And by pushed I mean on the fake size. The best one, without having that sensation so felt, is definitely the DLC. So I guess to be more correct, I should have said the DLC's probably got the best soundstage of all. Then these two, although slightly, let's say, colored, okay, and then the ones that have the smaller sound stages, the BGVP and the HE. In terms of imaging, they all are pretty good. The ones, you know, the DLC, the EPZ and the SIMGOT, probably a little bit more precise, but I mean the differences is so minimal to the BGVP that I really wouldn't say it's I would say that the imaging is basically equal on all, and even the soundstage, the difference is not as well significant. Detailed retrieval, I have to give the detailed retrieval to these two. The detailed retrieval is just a little bit unpolished, all right, and these two, they have good detailed retrieval. They have very, very good detailed retrieval. Again, I think it's more a question of, if you listen to them by themselves, you'll be happy and satisfied. If you listen to those two, you then see that those two are capable to just fetch that little extra bit. I mean, again, let me repeat, the differences here are minor. And these are differences that you will hear under really, you know, ideal conditions. It's not, as I usually say, it's not you listening to them on the train or on the bus, or, you know, that you're going to pick up on these differences. Trust me. You have to be at home, quiet place, some nice gear, nice, you know, nice quality music file, and there you will pick up on the differences. It's not flagrant, like, oh, okay, this is a big thing. So we've covered soundstage, we covered imaging, we covered detailed retrieval, we covered timbre and tonality. As for the actual frequency response, you know, bass, mids, upper mids, treble, and so on. The BGVP has very nice bass, in my opinion. It's not a quicker bass, no, but it's got a very nice timbre and tonality and a very nice texture to it. Let's start from this side, sorry. The DLC is basically the same thing, just a little bit quicker. This one a little bit thicker, okay, and a little bit quicker as well than the BGVP. The HE also is very much like the bass here. It's a little bit on the slower side, a little bit more sub bass than here, very minimal. And the bass of the SIMGOT actually is the one that comes across the leanest of all. In terms of bleed into the mids or anything, there's no such thing here. I mean, the transition from sub bass to mid bass into mids is flawless, and then the pin again as well, and all of them is very smooth, very relaxed. Nothing is forward, nothing is abrupt. Male vocals, the BGVP does them flawlessly. Female vocals does it flawlessly. The one that out of all the rest of them that probably does female vocals a little bit better, but very, very minor, I would say probably the EPZ and the DLC, just a little bit better. The HE, no, it's a little bit less, not as good as the BGVP. And the SIMGOT, I can't. The SIMGOT, you know, is very capable, and it's not by chance that I wreck it. No, it's not by chance. the female vocals, they just sometimes have a little bit of a metallicness to them. I think that's the best way I can put it. And treble, they all have plenty of extension. The one that, in my opinion, has the most extension is the DLC, followed by the EPZ, very close, these two. And this one also has basically the same kind of extension, but it's just less polished. So if I consider the amount and then is it polished or more harsh, these two are the better ones. This one is slightly less. These two, the extension is fine. You know, you could argue that the extension that these two have is actually more correct, because it's not as pushed, it's not as fake. But look, to each its own, and I mean, ultimately, it's what you like and what you prefer. So that's it, guys. I mean, look, BGVP P05, it's a really well thought out IM. You can see that they put some work into it in terms of wanting to you know, have a novel technology implemented, and they've implemented it well. It's smart. I would like to see this being used in some of their other models. Unfortunately, BGVP, for some reason, I get the feeling that they are a brand which is not very open to, first of all, to some positive criticisms, because they've had some products in the past which have been an absolute disappointment, you know, and they didn't really do anything to kind of improve on them or take into account what people were saying. They just are very much a brand that, you know, does things their own way and doesn't really listen. Maybe who knows, here with the 05, it might be the beginning of a new era for them, because the reality is they've got some interesting products. They've got some, I mean, the NS10 is a nice IM, the NS9 was a little bit darker, but also was pretty nice. You know, the Tribrid that they have as well, the NE5, excuse me, guys, wasn't too bad. It was alright. I mean, a little bit expensive considering its performance, but it wasn't terrible. Even the Melody as well wasn't too bad. I guess the ones that have been the biggest disappointments have been, well, not only the cheaper ones, but some of the BA unit ones, some of the all BA units, the M6 and so on. Especially because their price is completely out of context when compared to what you can get nowadays. Maybe back in the day when they were launched, they were half decent, but by today's standards, they're not there. So BGVP, you know, I think they deserve applause for having, you know, tried to make a nice sounding single lead IM, which they have done. This is for me is a superior IM to the Melody, which is cost $100, and definitely an IM that can, you know, very much compete with any one of these. Actually, if, like I said, if you favor a slightly, let's almost say, organic, old school kind of sound, you know, this one is probably a very solid choice. Its real only issue that I see is the shell design is not one which will be favored by many people. That's the one issue. And then the other issue is the fact that, yes, okay, they've entered the bandwagon of Harman tuned IEMs, which is safe. It doesn't really offend me. I mean, ultimately they want to make money and have a piece of the pie as well. And if you want to try a novel thing, you always run the risk of what you are trying will not be accepted. So I don't really think that's the issue. The issue is that they've maybe entered this war a little bit late, and you know, the market has become absolute, you know, it's cutthroat. Everybody is trying to cut everybody else's product down, and you know, and bring down prices, and well, ultimately it's good for us, the consumer, because you know, with these price wars and them bringing down the prices but trying to keep the quality and increase the quality, you know, it's good because we are the ones that will benefit. I mean, this sort of performance, let's be honest here, this sort of performance that the BGVP offers, or any one of these IEMs actually, yeah, for that matter, this level of performance was what we were used to seeing on IEMs costing $200, $300 just a few years ago. Okay, I mean, this level of performance, maybe not as polished, but this is what you get from the likes of things like Moondrop Kato, Oxygen, Aoun, Jasper. You know, we're talking IMs which are significantly more expensive, and they are offering it at as low as $40. SimGot, you know, I mean, SimGot has been an absolute killer ever since they came out with the EA500. They've absolutely been killing it, model after model, a success story. You know, so anyway, guys, I'll show you now quickly the graphs, and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care now. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the BGVP P05. This is the graph of my BGVP P05 with the stock filters, which are the red and the the gold in the front and the red in the back. Okay, it's a Harman tune, slight sub bass roll off. But as you can see, everything is very nicely done, very smooth. You would think that there would be a tendency for the P05 to be a bright sounding IM. Not so. It's got a nice brightness which is organic. It's a difficult one to explain. And then you can see by this that yes, the technicalities are pretty decent. I mean, it's got good soundstage, like I mentioned, and everything. Just what it loses to the other ones. I mean, you could argue that this is probably a more realistic soundstage, while the likes of the SimGot, excuse me, and the APZ might have slightly bigger soundstage, but at the cost of also being slightly more colored. Okay, let's put it that way. But ultimately, you can see that the presentation or the frequency response of the P05 is very nice, very decent. With then the change of the back filter to the silver, you get a boost in the sub bass, and that's how I actually prefer to listening to it. Why? Because this little extra bit of energy that you get here, especially below 50 hertz, just helps with the tonality of the rest. And if in the stock way the tonality was good and was very correct, but you only really pick up on it once you change the filters. But once you change the filters, you just feel that with the back filter being the silver and not the red, it just sounds more realistic. It just sounds more true to the original. At least this is my perception, and listening to the music that I listen to, obviously. Then the other combination, which is by changing from the gold to the silver in the front. If I now change to the silver in the front and put the red in the rear, this is the response that we get. So as I mentioned, you know, we have kind of a peak at around 2, and then kind of plateaus itself, and then a slight peak there at around 5. So it tames down overall this. But the difference actually, when I compare it to the red filter, the difference, sorry, let me actually put the one which had the same, okay, the gold, okay, there we go. And actually as well, to be totally fair, I should align them just a little bit better. There we go, that's aligned now perfectly. Seriously, 1 dB there. I didn't see, I really didn't pick up on the difference. I truly didn't pick up on the difference. I'm guessing maybe people that are sensitive to this upper mid and treble area, they might pick up on the difference. I didn't really perceive any real difference. Now, when the filters on the back were changed, and although again they are almost identical, like this, I could feel just a slight difference. Of things just being a little bit just smoother. That's it. Okay, that's the thing. Otherwise, the reality is, with either one of the filter setups, the P05 actually does sound very, very good. It always sounds very satisfying, whichever way you use it. Okay, so that's the setup that I did all the listening with. and that I am going to now compare with the rest. The first one I'm going to be comparing it with is, let me just bring it here, okay, is the SIMGOT, the EW200. Do I need to say more? The thing here that jumps to me is that, you know, graphically you see the SIMGOT being less energetic and all that, but then for some reason when you actually listen to it, it sounds more open. It sounds like it's got more ability up top, and I think that's down to the fact that although bass wise they seem similar, the bass on the BGVP just sounds tonally a little bit warmer, and it's what I was just saying earlier. You know, it just makes the rest with the harmonics that come along with it sound slightly different. Tonally, it changes. So the SIMGOT is always very much, I would say, almost like if it had a can too many of Red Bull by comparison. Okay, this is me really kind of exaggerating, all right, because I like the SIMGOT a lot, but that's how it kind of comes across when you compare it with the BGVP in terms of its upper, mids and treble. All right, so that's the SIMGOT there. The next one I'm going to be showing you is the EPZ. Again, another one which belongs to that group that I was mentioning, that was the more clinical, brighter sounding. And again, the differences are, the bass is very similar. It's just the way that this, you know, the treble and then that air comes across. It's just that there that is where you pick up that slight difference. It just sounds, the EPZ and the SIMGOT, they just sound more, you know, I've got to be very careful here with my word section, but they sound artificial by comparison to the BGVP that sounds more realistic, more organic. All right, but I mean, guys, trust me, please, this is so difficult to convey. These are very, very minor differences. There's nothing here which is tremendously different or anything, okay? Compared to the T2 DLC, slight difference here in the bass, non-perceivable, and the rest is basically the same. The T2 DLC is the one that, in my opinion, comes across as having the most extension. What you hear, not graphically, you wouldn't say that, but what you hear, that's how it comes across. And I guess it's down to the fact it's using a DLC diaphragm. They are known for that capacity. Okay, and then finally the Wizard, the HE10. A little bit more bass, which is perceivable, you know, you can perceive it, and then the rest again is very similar. I mean, look guys, these are all 5 put together, and you know, you could even argue that this is channel imbalance from left to right, with the exception, maybe with the exception here of the T2 DLC, which is a little bit more different, above 7K, all right, but otherwise the rest, the others, they all, I mean, if you know, if I take away this one and I take away this one and I just leave this, the EPZ, the SIMGOT and the BGVP, you know, you could easily say, oh, this is left and right channel, you know. That's what it is, and sound wise as well, it's very minor tonality and timbre issues that separate them, very, very minor. Okay, in conclusion, what can I tell you? Should you get it? Should you not get it? Well, look, if you have any one of the other 4, does it make sense to go buy this? It would make sense if perhaps you just want to see or hear or have something which has got a different technology, let's put it that way. Sonically, it's not going to bring anything to the equation. It's not going to be a BNIM that's going to be radically different if you own any one of the other four. Maybe if you own the EPZ and the SIMGOT, this could be a nicer, warmer alternative, let's put it that way. Okay, I'll say that much. So yeah, guys, I mean, look, if you have the opportunity to listen to any one of these, and if because you are in the market to buy any one of these and you haven't yet selected, or you know, if you have a place which enables you to listen to them, listen to all of them. That's what I would recommend. Listen to all of them. You know, listen to them with songs that you like, with your music genres. I mean, you can have a look at my playlist, you know, for the sake of maybe comparisons as well. But listen to what you like, and you know, ultimately, it's very simple. What sounds the best to your ear is what you should get. Trust your instincts. That's it. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what any other reviewer says. What matters is what sounds best to your ears. Yeah, and if what sounds best to your ears is the SIMGOT, then get the SIMGOT. If what sounds best to your ears is the BGVP, get the BGVP. Who cares what I say? All right, that's you know, it would be completely unprofessional for me to be sitting here and tell you, no, you have to get the BGVP because the BGVP is the bomb. No, I'm not gonna do that. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask. Okay, you take care now. Bye bye.